You think torture was hidden in shadows? Think again. These weren't secret tools of madmen, they were legal, approved, justified. From chairs that cooked you alive, to devices made to bloom pain inside your body, these were instruments of law, faith, and order used not by criminals, but by courts, churches, and kings. Number 1. The Spanish chair. When justice was set on fire. You think justice means courts and lawyers. In medieval Spain, justice meant being strapped to a red-hot iron chair and left there until you confessed. Meet the Spanish chair, a legally approved torture device during the infamous Spanish Inquisition. Victims were tied to a metal chair with iron restraints. Then fires were lit underneath until the whole chair began to glow red. Some versions had sharp iron spikes on the seat back and armrests so any movement would slice into flesh. Doctors were often present not to help, but to keep victims alive long enough to confess. And confess they did, whether they were guilty or not. To us, it's a horror show, but back then, this was justice served with fire and faith, a legal way to save your soul. By destroying your body. Number 2. Judas Cradle. Sit down and suffer. Imagine being slowly lowered naked onto a sharpened pyramid. No blood at first, just pain. But gravity doesn't stop. Say hello to the Judas Cradle, one of the most terrifying legal torture methods in medieval Europe. Prisoners were tied up and suspended above a pointed pyramid. Then they were lowered until the tips slowly pierced their anus or genitals. No quick death here, just hours, sometimes days of pain pressure and internal tearing. The device was rarely cleaned, leading to deadly infections. It was used to force confessions or simply to punish sins like heresy, homosexuality, or witchcraft. No knives, no whips, just geometry and gravity used in the name of law. Welcome to medieval justice, brutal, simple, and absolutely legal. Number 3. The silence bridle. Speak and you bleed. Talking too much? Complaining. In medieval Europe, that could get your tongue locked inside a metal gag, designed to slice you every time you dared to speak. Introducing the Scold's bridle, also known as the gag of silence. A metal mask was locked onto the victim's head with a spiked plate forced into their mouth, pressing down on the tongue. Try to talk, the spike would cut and tear. It was mostly used on women accused of gossip, disobedience, or rebellious speech. Some were paraded through town while wearing it as public humiliation. And yes, this was fully legal in parts of England, Germany, and Scotland. They called it discipline. But it was really about control, silencing women with iron and blood all under the law. Number 4. The Pear of Anguish. A gift you never want. It looked like a fruit, but once it went inside you, it bloomed. And by the time it opened fully, you were praying to die. Meet the Pear of Anguish. A small pear-shaped metal device inserted into the mouth, rectum or vagina depending on the crime. Once inside, a key would be turned, expanding metal petals outward, tearing tissue from the inside out. Used on women accused of witchcraft or abortion, men accused of homosexuality, or anyone considered a blasphemer. The device didn't kill instantly. Victims often died later from internal bleeding or infection. It was legal punishment in certain parts of Europe for centuries, often carried out without trial. They called it moral correction, but it was nothing more than torture disguised as justice, a metal flower that only bloomed in hell. Number 5. The rack. Stretch until you break. You ever crack your knuckles too hard? Now imagine your whole body doing that. Slowly. 1 inch at a time. The rack is probably the most infamous torture device in history. And yes, it was entirely legal in many royal courts. Victims were tied at the wrists and ankles, then pulled in opposite directions using a crank. Tendons stretched, muscles tore, joints popped out of place. Many confessed just to make it stop, but some were stretched until they literally split apart. In England, it was used under the authority of the monarch, particularly during the Tudor period, to extract confessions from traitors. They said it was a way to uncover the truth. But in reality, the rack didn't reveal secrets. It just created corpses. Number 6. The breast ripper. Justice gendered and cruel. There was a device made just for women. It didn't kill you fast. It didn't need to. It just ripped your body apart in the name of morality. The breast ripper, also called the spider, was designed to punish women accused of adultery, heresy, or abortion. It consisted of iron claws, sometimes heated red hot, used to rip and tear the breasts off the body. It was often a public act meant to shame the victim. discourage others, and satisfy a bloodthirsty crowd. Survivors, if any, were left disfigured, bleeding, and usually died from infection or trauma. Shockingly, this wasn't a rogue tool. It was used with approval by local authorities across medieval Europe. This wasn't just torture, it was weaponized misogyny forged in iron and justified by law. Number 7. The Iron Maiden. A hug from hell. You step into a coffin, but instead of peace, you're embraced by metal spikes. The Iron Maiden was a human-sized iron cabinet lined with sharp spikes on the inside, designed to slowly impale the victim when the door closed. The spikes were placed strategically, not to kill instantly, but to pierce just enough to cause agony. Victims could remain alive for hours or days, bleeding inside their personal torture coffin. While the exact historical usage is debated, replicas were found and referenced in 18th century accounts, especially in Germany. The concept itself became so popular that, even if exaggerated, it was later used symbolically to strike fear and justify brutal punishments. They called it justice in silence. But really, it was a death box made to make you scream, until you never could again. Number 8. The breaking wheel. Legal execution by rotation. What's worse than being executed? Being slowly shattered into pieces, bone by bone, in public with everyone watching. The breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was used across medieval Europe as both torture and execution. The victim was tied across a large wooden wheel. Executioners used iron bars to smash bones, usually in a specific sequence to keep the person alive longer. The broken body was then woven into the spokes and left out for birds to feast on. This wasn't rogue justice, it was state-approved punishment for crimes like murder, theft, or heresy. In some regions, victims could be mercifully killed first, but only if granted by the court. They turned the human body into a twisted art project of pain, all in the name of order, law, and spectacle. Number 9. Thumbscrews, confess or crack. Ever slammed your fingers in a door? Now imagine that, but slowly on purpose and with metal screws. Thumbscrews were small but brutal. A clamp device that slowly crushed the fingers or toes by turning a screw. Used across Europe, especially during the Inquisition, to extract confessions from heretics or suspicious individuals. Some versions had spikes or jagged edges to add extra pain. It was also a favorite of law enforcement to punish, without killing especially women and teenagers. Despite the cruelty, it was a legal interrogation method, even used in colonial America and Scotland. It didn't take a guillotine to torture someone, just to screw some pressure and the law on your side. Number 10. The Heretic's Fork. Speak and you die. Imagine being forced to keep your head up. Not because of pride, but because if you nod off, a spike will stab through your throat. The Heretic's Fork was a metal rod with 2 sharp prongs at each end, one pressed into the lower jaw, the other into the chest or neck. It prevented the victim from speaking, sleeping, or even dropping their head slightly. If they did, the forks would stab into flesh, causing bleeding or even piercing vital areas. The person was often forced to wear it for hours or days. Used primarily by the Catholic Church during the Inquisition, especially on those accused of heresy or possession. It wasn't just about pain, it was about control, mind, body, and soul, all through legal torture. They called it justice, but it was pain legalized, glorified, and unleashed. If this disturbed you, good. There's more. Subscribe for truth they never meant you to know.